I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. I've tried to remain as open-minded as possible about Stockton Rush. Arrogant, yes, but is dishonest taking it too far? I thought so, I thought that might be the case until I saw another infuriating anecdote in Vanity Fair. It's also recently been picked up by the Daily Mail. In 2016, Stockton Rush lodged his Cyclops 1 submersible into the wreckage of the Andrea Doria, which sank in 1956 not far off Nantucket. Rush then stubbornly refused help for an hour while having a meltdown in the process. Meanwhile, on board was a far more experienced submersible pilot, Lochridge, but as usual, Stockton thought he knew better. Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. If you're not getting notifications, unsubscribe, resubscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So according to the article, as chief pilot and the person responsible for operational safety, Lochridge created a dive plan that had protocols for how to approach the wreck of the ship, the Andrea Doria. And what happened? Stockton Rush landed too close and he got tangled in the current. And there are quite strong currents in that particular area of the ocean. And so he actually managed to wedge the sub beneath the Andrea Doria's crumbling bow. And according to the article, he descended into a full-blown panic. I would actually love to know the details of that. What did he do? What did he say? How did he respond to people around him? There are some details. And the reason is because on camera, we always see the other Stockton Rush, the Stockton Rush that is suave, cool, calm, and collected. It does seem like he had a brittle side that brooked no truck with those offering him advice. Anyone offering him advice was basically suggesting that he wasn't the smartest person in the room. And on board that expedition was someone who did, Lochridge, certainly in terms of submersibles. According to the article, Lochridge tried to take the helm, but Rush had refused to let him, melting down for over an hour until finally one of the clients shrieked, "Give him the fucking controller!" At which point Rush hurled the controller, threw it at him. It's this video game joystick at Lochridge's head. Lochridge then freed the sub in 15 minutes. You know, the other thing is he kind of has this golden boy, nice guy vibe. But I don't know. I've referred to Stockton Rush in the previous videos as spoiled man boy who must always get his way. Well, isn't this another exhibit in that archive? According to Vanity Fair, the expedition had been planned. This is to the Andrea Doria, the shipwreck off Nantucket. They'd planned 10 dives, but instead it ended abruptly, I think, on that dive. I don't know if it was the first of 10 or the precursor to the 10 dives, but there and then it ended. And then they cited adverse, quote-unquote, adverse weather conditions for the reasons why the whole expedition had been called off. Where have we heard that before? And then during the same situation, after returning to shore in Boston, according to the article, Rush held a press conference, and this is what he said. "We were able to view the Andrea Doria area for nearly 4 hours, which is more than 10 times longer than scuba divers can." And then the dive, according to OceanGate's website, they said they focused on the bow of the vessel. Just unbelievable. So they get trapped kind of in the bow area of the vessel, and they say on their website, no, we were focusing on that area. Now, Don Walsh is a legend in oceaneering circles. You can read about him on Wikipedia. He's also cited in the Vanity Fair article, and he calls a spade a spade. He says, referring to Stockton Rush, he says, he doesn't tell the truth. What's his name, Rush? He's absolutely 14-carat self-certitude. The impression one gets from Rush is he always has to be the hero, the Captain Kirk of his story, and is willing to cheat his way to get his noddy badges. In other words, he's willing to stretch the truth or not tell the truth in order to come out of to appear in terms of his own story as the hero of his own story. At least one other journalist who encountered Rush less than a month before disaster struck this year felt that he was rash and reckless. Do you remember Arnie Wiseman? He wrote in Travel Weekly in June this year the following. He wrote, winds, swells and fog, sometimes present, sometimes predicted, were the stated reasons dive days were cancelled on my trip with OceanGate in May. But when I was on board the support ship, the Polar Prince, and hoping to go down in the submersible Titan to see the Titanic, I sometimes wondered whether the submersible's readiness was also an unspoken but important consideration. In other words, he was wondering, is the wool being pulled over my eyes? You know, when they say that we're not doing this because of the weather, is it actually because there's a fault on the vehicle? But, we're not going to say that. And if you think, if that was going on, if you have that deception going on, that manipulation going on, there could be a legal case. And certainly this was the journalist's impression. But the question is, are they going to be able to demonstrate that? And is it going to rise to the level of some sort of culpability? And then the question also goes to, what about the other crew members? What about the other staff? Were they aware of issues, and did they withhold information? In any event, in the aftermath of his luckless trip, Wiseman actively tried to discourage Hamish Harding from going through with his expedition, citing the lack of safety of the platform which Stockton had towed behind the ship for the first time in 2023. So here you have someone who goes through the motions, suspects something is going on, and then actively warns somebody else. And then you've got to ask the question, shouldn't other tourists that wanted to have this experience, shouldn't they have been actively warned as well? And I don't mean in the disclaimers on the contract. I mean, should they not have been informed? If the crew and other people knew certain things were going on, weren't they obligated to inform these tourists? If the bluster, bravado, and big talk was obvious, we can now add bullshit to that characterization. If you take a craft down, if you experience a failure or sustain damage, and then you still go through with a press conference singing your praises, you're not a hero or an innovator, you're a bullshitter. And isn't this a small kind of example, an analog to what OceanGate was doing in general? It's an open question, but that, I think, is the legal question they're being faced, is that the craft would go down and they would come up and then promote the hell out of it. And, in other words, cheerlead the successes, right? And cover up the failures. So one really has a sense, whatever the real reason Rush couldn't become an astronaut, and I personally doubt it was about his eyesight, but whatever it was, it must have created a very big chip on his shoulder, and that's besides the one that was already there, being refused to be allowed to do what he wanted to do. The whole OceanGate thing was Stockton's redemption, in terms of Stockton, where he could play at being a hero, make his own rules, surround himself with yes men, control the narrative, yes men and women, and become the Captain Kirk show pony he'd always dreamed of being. Instead, he's become the poster child for what not to do in the deep ocean. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.